welcome to week 3 of our brand new series called Brand New. Thank you. It's catching on. You guys missed it last week. This week, I just want to say there are no retractions from last week, so I want to say thank you. Thank you for the overwhelming positive feedback that we've received on this series as well. We do very much appreciate you. But we do pray this series is making a difference in your worlds. We are being made brand new by what Jesus has done in our lives, and we're hoping that you can pull this apart in your e-groups again this week. But we want to touch on the fact that the first week we talked about we have been made brand new for new things. There's a purpose and there's a sense of mission. We covered that sense of new territory last week. So we talked about the Apostle Paul and the new territory or the new ground that he took, realizing that not all of us are the Apostle Paul, but we pulled out a verse in Ephesians that really made it relatable to us and our calling and our outworking of our mission in our local context as well. And this week we want to talk about new people. So how people have helped to shape us because of the fact that we're brand new. So Scotty, why don't you start off with a thought on new people?
Yeah, well, again, if we just use Paul as a great example, that his life got changed, and again, it changed his mission. He went from persecuting the church to giving his life for the church. Wow. But it also changed the people he did life with. Yeah. His whole world changed. He went from hanging out with Pharisees and the Jewish leaders to now hanging out with the apostles, the Gentiles, to people he was originally persecuting. He's now having meals with. He is now connecting with. His whole life has now been shaped by a whole new group of people.
Even relationally, Paul meets up with the disciples.
Yeah.
And they must have been freaking out, thinking that, and there's dialogue around that, like, hang on, is this the same Paul that persecuted? So even relationally, the people side of becoming brand new, it's not always safe.
Yeah.
It's not always comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, these guys are thinking, is he coming to murder us? Is this a plot or a ruse?
Yeah, but when you think about that, like, in what world would we be friends, right? If it wasn't for Christ?
That's a little harsh.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? It's like, we're so different, but
I'd like to think we would have found each other somehow.
I don't know. It's Jesus.
Yeah. When you become a Christian, and a lot of you sitting in e-groups would testify to this, your relational world changes.
Yes.
Now
look around the room.
Yeah. Look in the e-group you're a part of.
Wow.
It's that sense of my whole world has changed. So the new that God has done in me has now created new people all around me, and I need those new people.
Yeah,
you do.
So there's a couple of things we want to talk about. The first thing is how people now can help to shape us. This is not always a comfortable thought. That when we've talked about the burden and the discomfort of the way that we see our world, now the lenses we talked about last week, but also there are uncomfortable and awkward conversations that as followers of Jesus that we have now, but that's a good thing for us because we now allow people to shape our world, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Well, we hope.
You guys are looking blank at me. I do. I don't know you guys do.
I do all the time.
We desire to. So this is interesting because the new me desires it, but sometimes the old me feels uncomfortable with it.
Desires what?
Desires new people, new relationships, this shaping.
Right.
But what if you're an introvert or an extrovert? Do you think that factors in?
Well, the Bible doesn't talk about whether it doesn't talk about personality. I think it's great to celebrate that, but also, doesn't that come back down to the again in the first series, if I remember back, we talked about the mercy of Jesus. It's his mercy and it's his loving kindness that shapes us. Out of that revelation, out of that love, I don't then put my personality into it. I go, I can't help but, like Jeremiah says, there's like it's a fire shut up in my bones. Like I can't help but speak to people. So I think we've got to celebrate the introverts and the extroverts and the ENTPs and the Enneagram 7s and the whatevers that we are. That's a good thing, but it helps you to identify a bit of our character.
That's great.
Yeah.
But we can't use it as, I don't think, as an excuse to go, I can't reach people.
Yeah. Or I don't need people. I'm better on my own. Yeah. Because the new me needs new people to shape me, and that's the Paul. He needed the apostles, but the apostles needed Paul. They needed the that's what I like is Paul was difficult. It would have been difficult for Paul to embrace Peter. It was difficult for Peter to embrace Paul. Right, so I need people who challenge me, but I've also, and often we talk about, I need this difficult person to embrace me. or I need to embrace them so they change me. But the reality is, I'm the difficult person.
Maybe we are the difficult people. Look around the room in 3, point to the difficult people. 1, 2, 3, now go. So what about this? There's a verse in Hebrews 10:25 talks about, so the church was being persecuted for their faith, the newfound followers of the way, and it talks about don't neglect the gathering together of the saints, as some are in the habit of doing. Do it all the more as you see the day of the Lord approaching. And the context of that was people were. It's not like there wasn't apathy. They weren't just not coming out. They were scared for their lives because of the beatings that they were getting and the persecution. They were being locked up. So how does that relate to us, going back to maybe your introvert comment, how does that relate to us not needing people?
Well, their fear was a fear of persecution.
Yeah.
But that's not our fear. But fear still exists when it comes to community.
Well, that's not our fear in the West, maybe.
That is.
It's a real fear for a lot of people.
But for many of us watching, our fear isn't that if I show up to church, or if I show up to eGroup, that I'm going to be persecuted. But fear still exists in other forms. Maybe I've got social anxiety, so there's a fear there. Maybe the fear of rejection. Maybe it's the fear of even the fear of allowing people close enough to me, like that fear to trust, that vulnerability. Yeah. There's other fears that the scripture still relates to. You might have a fear, but that fear isn't enough of a reason to disqualify yourself or withdraw from. You got to find the mercy of God to overcome that fear.
Yeah.
The fear of swimming you had?
Yeah. I had a fear. Yes, I had a fear of water, overcame it.
Yeah.
And I just had to realise that, you've got to do something about it. So there has to be an action. And so going to eGroup, showing up is really huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you think everyone's going to judge you, but no one's judging you.
Yeah.
No one's thinking about you.
Yeah.
But they are. You know what I mean?
That's good. So we need to have people that help to shape us. As uncomfortable as it is, it's a good thing for us.
Yeah.
There's also Matthew 20:28. Jesus talks about, I've not come to serve, but to be. I've not come to be served. Get that right. Yes. I've not come to be served, but to serve. Jesus came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many.
Yeah.
And he talks about, I think, even in the 26, a couple of verses prior to that like for you it will be different. So there's this difference about us seeing serving our community, serving our world. Like that's the foundation of us as followers of Jesus, is our service to people, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's where we're called to. In the new me, I need new people to shape me, but I'm called to serve new people.
Yeah.
Paul was now called to serve Gentiles, to go to new places, to serve new people groups, and that sense of part of the new me has a new call, and that's to serve new people. Yeah. And it's in my world embracing in the new me. The old me liked to be served. Like the old me liked to have people. It's a very selfish me.
Yes.
But the new me, the Christ in me, is actually the motivation to serve. So the question, is that sense of now that I'm new, who is the new people that God's calling me to serve?
So when I used to do exercise a lot,
Used to.
Well, new me will be exercising again.
Yeah.
But I remember because I was in the music team years ago. We used to do pack up, pack down, and so I learnt how to put things away and set things up, and that comes naturally. And so at the end of every exercise class, I was the only one that would help pack down, and the guy said, "Wow, thank you," because no one wanted to do that, and I did that because that's what we did at church. And he said, "Oh, thank you so much. You're the first one that's ever done that." And I think that's spilling, what you learn in church or what God has done in you. We've got to do that out in our community. And that spoke volumes. Yeah. So
it's good.
Shout out to the music team.
Well, the spirit, that spirit to serve is quite foreign to the world around us. So the moment you start serving the world, it's like even our whole thing of, as a church, one of our heartbeats is to advance.
Yeah.
But it's not to take over, it's to serve and come under. Yeah. And it's that whole spirit. And that's even that little acts of service speak big volumes. That's why I like the Mother Teresa quote that talks about, if you can't do great things, do little things with great love. And if you can't do it with great love, do it with little love. And if you can't do it with little love, just do it anyway. It's that sense of just serve, and it will have an impact.
Great.
Yeah, I really think service is... It's so disruptive to our world because our world is not designed to serve people. And can I just again look down the barrel of the camera and say, when you serve people in your world, it makes a difference and it makes an impact. And we often don't want to do it because it's uncomfortable or it's going to cost us something. Yep. But can I just challenge you all and maybe talk about in your e-groups, when was the last time that you really felt to serve? When was the last time you did something that benefited somebody other than yourself? That's not harsh. That's the essence of who we are as a follower of Jesus, is that Jesus came not to be served, but to serve. And I think that's really important that we get a handle of that. Even going back to Paul, and we'll finish in a moment, but going back to Paul's whole service world changed. Again, he said, I'm called to the Gentiles. Yeah. But he was a Jew of the highest order. Yes. Circumcised on the 8th day. Like he was that Jew, and yet he's called a whole different people group that he was. So the challenge for us is, are there people in our world that don't look like us? And maybe that's our final point, is really how do we now reach people? Yeah. If we're talking about brand new and we're talking about new people, how do we reach people that don't, as you see, Kat, that don't look like us, that don't act like us, that aren't from the same maybe socio-economic background as us? Like, how do we challenge each other to reach people that aren't in our immediate worlds?
That's great.
Great question.
Yeah. Good question.
See, we're blank on it.
Because we're thinking.
Because it's tough. It's tough. But that's the old and the new me. The old me who likes to stay with the people I'm comfortable with. The old me likes the people that I feel. But the new me calls me to reach new people. And it's even that deeper sense of, I like the people that like me. Yeah. And sometimes God calls me to people that might not necessarily like me, but that's even Paul's whole thing, initially calling to a whole group of people that didn't necessarily feel comfortable with him, but God's called him to reach out to them. And we reach out through service, we reach out with the gospel, we reach out, but ultimately we in the new me, I need people to shape me, I need people to serve, and I'm called to reach out to new people.
Great.
So probably a good final comment. Thank you, team. That was a really good discussion today in our week 3 of our series called Brand New. But also in the last 3 months, really good challenge. Who in your world have you allowed to shape you? Who in your world have you served? And maybe who in your world have you reached out to personally? Not a story from 15 years ago that you're still rehashing, but in the last 3 months, who have you reached out to? And again, think about practical ways that you can do that. That doesn't mean that we stand on a soapbox all the time and preach the gospel, but it's how have you done that with your words and your actions and your deeds and everything that you are. I pray this has been really helpful. It's been really good for us to discuss. As you've heard, we've got some blanks. We hope you can fill in those blanks at home or in your cafes or your lounges where you're meeting. Have a great discussion for week 3 of our brand new series. And we'll see you next week for week 4 of Brand New. God bless.